What is up? Are you unhappy, maybe stressed, depressed, and you just think like if I could just get this thing, then I'll be happy, or if I could just achieve this goal, then I'll be happy? Well, today you're in luck because we're going to talk about why most people will never be truly happy. This is the Existential Stoic Podcast. I'm Danny. I'm here with my buddy Randy. What's up, Randy?
What's up, Danny? What do you mean
On this,
people can't be happy?
I was gonna say on this very uplifting, optimistic episode.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I thought this was such a cool idea for episode topic because like I think happiness is like this lie we tell ourselves. And I'm grateful, like I mentioned this before, like I'm not for like career stuff and all, but I'm grateful I studied philosophy for my own life because
hmm
like, you know, one of the things I realized early on was like our conception of happiness is so skewed from like what all these great minds really what they meant when they were talking about a good life or a happy life or a flourishing life or eudaimonia. It was never about being like in this joyous, ecstatic state all the time. That makes no sense. You can't do that. There's ups and downs in life. It was more about like growth and achievements or contentment. And like it was also about like, doing well and living well. And it wasn't really about this like emotional thing that we've come to connect to happiness like this happily ever after stuff and this like these ideas of this ideal of happiness that just is unachievable. And I think this is one of the core reasons why most people will never be truly happy because their idea of happiness is unattainable. It is
hmm
just impossible to achieve it. Yeah.
Yeah. And not to mention we're just so confused about what happiness is. Like
Yeah.
point in case, I was playing Zelda Tears of the Kingdom today.
Good
And
game.
yeah,
Yeah.
and so like on the loading screens, it'll give you tips for the game. And there's a whole bunch of caves in the game, and outside of the caves, there's a little like magical bunny. And if you shoot the bunny with an arrow, a whole bunch of rupees, which is the money in the game, will sprout out of this bunny. And so the tip was, which we tell children, is that if you sneak up close enough to one of these like mythical bunnies and you shoot it with an arrow, you will be rewarded with happiness. Not, and I was just like, there we go, already instilling that concept of like money equals happiness into people,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
reinforcing that.
Well, I think that's the other sad thing is that we have this idea that like, especially in consumer societies, that like you can't be happy unless you have a lot of money. And what cracks me up is that people literally will equate like they'll think of like Musk or Bezos and stuff and be like they're happy because they're wealthy and they're not. They're miserable. Look at
hmm
them.
Yeah.
Like Elon Musk can't even, I mean, he can't even sit. I saw a thing actually, like now, like, he can't even sit still. The dude doesn't even know what's going on in the world around him. He's
Mhm.
just trying to constantly get away from himself because he hates himself.
Yeah.
I mean, literally, that is like classic. I mean, it's like he's
hmm
like textbook case of that, and I think it's funny that we've made this sort of connection because I think we made this horrible mistake in a consumer society of everything's become evaluated by money. Everything. Your worth, your self-worth, your life, everything. Like everything in your life is now dictated by that. And the reality is you don't need that to be happy. Yes, it helps in the sense of like to live your life, but you don't need it to be happy.
Yeah, and it's just like you can prove it to yourself because I hear all the people listening and they're like, no way, that's not true. I need money to be happy. And it's like, have you ever in your entire life been happy when you didn't have money? Yeah. Well, you
Yeah,
just proved that you can be happy without money. So
yeah,
what's the point? Have you, and like you can also people like it's like one of those things that like being happy or being miserable, it kind of happens irrespective to a lot of other things. Like if you've ever been on vacation and been miserable,
yeah.
that's happened to me. I've been
And
in
then
a fucking excuse.
mad at yourself because you expect yourself to be happy
Yeah.
and you're losing that expectation. And
I've been
that,
in an island paradise and been miserable. And it's just like it doesn't correlate.
yeah, it
hmm
doesn't. And you know what's funny too? Like, this is the other thing I was like, I always liked like I'll go to Aristotle's conception of happiness, like eudaimonia, and it's like he thought they thought of it as like the better translation is like human flourishing, not happiness. And I actually like that idea better because flourishing, I think, has a better like ring. It's like living well and doing well. And like I think people forget too that like a lot of these people they idolize these CEOs, these executives, whatever, that are super wealthy. They do horrible things to get that money.
hmm
They fuck people over, they ruin people's lives, and like part of living well and doing well is also not doing those things. Being able to live with yourself.
Hmm.
Being able to look yourself in the mirror to say that like I made choices that I made because I have some moral compass or I have some values that I'm not going to step on, you
Yep.
know? And I think we are so quick to sell ourselves for money and we forget like that there's values and there's other things that might matter more than that at the end of the day.
Yeah, you're right. And like this emotional concept of happiness, this happily ever after thing, it just doesn't work because if you're blissed out all the time and like a saber-toothed tiger comes, you're just gonna be like, ah, cool, saber-toothed tiger,
Yeah.
and it's gonna eat you and you're done. You're gone from the gene pool,
Yeah.
you know?
I
So it's
tried it for
like
a while. It doesn't
it's
work.
actually a protection mechanism to
Yeah.
feel scared or to feel bad or to do all this different stuff at different times.
I think it's also just realizing too, like I like the way that you know, because when Aristotle talks about like what's the benefit of like virtue, it's like one of the benefits is having a balanced inner state. Meaning that, basically like, look, life is always going to be ups and downs, right? No matter what you do, people are going to die. There's going to be natural disasters. There's going to be things that happen in your life that are accidental, that are horrible, right? Chance events, fortune, whatever you want to call it. But if you have a balanced character, if you work on your character, you're going to ride those waves in a way more steady way. Whereas most people are going to be like, going up and down like crazy. You're going to be more balanced. And that's what he meant by flourishing, right? Is also this ability to deal with these stresses, these encounters in life that are going to be hard in a way that doesn't throw you off your game entirely and ruin your life. And I'm sure you can all think of people, right, who like somebody close to them dies and they like just totally like stop living their own life
Mhm.
or something like that, right? And I
Yeah.
think that's sad because
Yeah.
you still have your life. Yeah.
Yeah, and it brings you back to like the philosophy of kind of uh evaluating your own life or questioning your life or examining your
Yeah.
life because that's really one of the ways to be happy because like they say like in each burden there's a blessing, but also in each blessing there's a burden. And so like even though things may not be great, these negative feelings that we have, they actually serve us in a way. You know,
Yeah.
they say things about our values, they say things about other things like that. Like if we're depressed, you know, it may say that, you know what, we really have higher standards for ourselves and we're not meeting them. And maybe that's something
Yeah.
worth looking at. And that's, you know, that's a good thing to have high standards because if really bad stuff happens to you and you just let it happen, well, that may not be great.
Also, I always liked when John Stuart Mill said it's better to be Socrates dissatisfied than a fool satisfied.
I always
What
hated
he
that.
meant He did, yeah. Well, yeah, I always liked that because what he meant was like, look, Socrates can reflect, he can think. And dissatisfaction is also a recognition that we could change our world. We could change our circumstances, our state of affairs, and make them better. And it's through that dissatisfaction that we recognize and point out and start planning what can be improved, right?
Mhm.
And sometimes that is working towards ideals and stuff, that's fine. But it's just recognizing that, like, that's part of this whole game of life is the growth and improvement comes from the struggles we encounter and overcoming them.
Mhm.
Like Nietzsche always said, like we need to reinterpret suffering not as a negative, but as a positive. Because when we suffer, we also learn how to overcome obstacles, how to be a different person, how to grow, how to change, how to become something better than we are now. And
Mhm.
I always like that idea too, because I think we get so caught up, especially in consumerism, of always feeling good. And that if you're not feeling good, something's wrong with you. You need a pill or you need to go buy a Coke or whatever, right? Like whatever, whatever you're being sold. Instead of recognizing that like we don't feel good all the time. But those are opportunities to look at our lives and be like, well, what's wrong? What could I change? Or is this just okay? Is this just part of being a person? Is it, what about this? I don't know.
Well, I like what you're saying there. Is like we get so fixed on the outcome or the goal or the end thing that we miss out on what it takes to actually achieve that. Like we're focused on this on happiness or on money or on a certain body or whatever it is, instead of just focusing on becoming the type of person that is
Yeah,
happy or becoming the type of person that has this type of body or becoming the type of person that has this much money or whatever it is.
yeah.
We just get completely like laser focused on the end and we're like, I'm just gonna be miserable until I have that end goal. And yeah.
It's like so stupid because then we don't even enjoy the process of doing the things we want to do.
Hmm.
And we miss out on life entirely. It's
Hmm.
also funny too, and it's worth pointing out that like when they do like those happiness evaluation surveys,
Hmm.
like the wealthy countries are consistently ranked at
Oh yeah.
the very bottom,
Hmm.
because it's people there are aware of what they don't have. It's constantly thrown in their faces. Like you said too, we're constantly focused on the results, not how we get there. And if we don't have the results immediately, we're all miserable. It's like
Mhm.
really funny when you think about it that like a lot of people that are living way worse off than we are way happier than we are.
Yeah, and also because they don't have the money, so they focus on relationships. And that's
Yeah.
really what makes people feel
Oh,
good is
and
relationships.
it's funny they're forced to help each other
Yeah.
and have community instead
Uh-huh.
of being isolated and alone. It's really
Yeah.
funny how like we built this like very negative trap for ourselves. And then we sell ourselves these stories of a totally fictional notion of happiness. It's really effed up.
Mhm. Yeah.
So,
So that's why nobody's ever going to be happy ever. And
nope,
also like, so
you can be.
yeah. Well, here's the thing. So like, I mean, I haven't said anything all episode about feeling good and feeling great,
I know,
but
right? What the hell? You did
yeah,
kind of hint at it though.
yeah, right. But like, even in I would say he's like the foremost expert on feeling good, and which could be equated with happiness. But even he says, you're only entitled to 5 good days a week, and you're still going to have 2 bad days a week, and that's normal,
Yeah.
which is so cool and liberating, because
Oh, dude, I used to beat
for
myself up so bad when I had bad days. So bad. Because
exactly,
I was like, I shouldn't feel like this. I'm making other people's days worse. And then I make them even worse because I felt bad about it and I was berating myself for,
yeah. If
Instead
I'm
of
going to
just
be
being like,
feel bad, everybody else is going to feel
but
bad
instead of just being
too.
like, you know what, I'm a person and, I'm gonna have bad days. It's cool. It's totally okay. Nothing, not a big deal. It doesn't mean my life's over. It doesn't mean everything's ruined.
Hmm.
We're
Yeah,
so quick to just jump to the worst conclusions. It's funny, isn't it?
yeah.
Ah,
So that's
well,
it.
there you have it. Why no one's happy, or wait, why no one will ever truly be happy. There you go.
Ever.
Ever. This is the Existential Stoic Podcast. If you guys have episode suggestions, you can email us. The email's in the show notes, or you can leave a comment. We like that back and forth. It's a lot of fun. We also like, thinking that maybe we're helping someone. Who knows? You never know, right? We'll be back later this week with another episode. Catch it out on YouTube wherever you get podcasts. Until next time, though, later, Randy.
Later, Danny.